Welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Tuesday, the 26th of July. Today I am going to speak to you about something that is happening within the Anglican communion, or for my American friends, the Episcopal world, church world. Every 10 years or thereabouts, because of COVID, it was pushed back a few years. All of the Anglican bishops from around the world, the Anglican communion, come together at Lambeth Palace in England. Under the auspices of the Archbishop of Canterbury, which is like the equivalent, not really the equivalent, but that he's the Pope of the Anglican Church. Very different role that our Archbishop of Canterbury holds. He is chosen in a very different manner than the Pope, of course, and certainly doesn't have all of the baggage attached to him that the Pope does with papal infallibility, etc. However, we as Anglicans work on an understanding that we are in communion with one another and must come together to share faith, to share vision and prayers for the future, to talk about who we are as Anglicans in the world, and represent the very diverse ways that Anglicans are living. And the Lambeth Conference every 10 years is an important strategic part of that. And there's a lot of people very frustrated, flying all these people over there to England, and the amount of money that it costs, and they could, all of this Zoom stuff. Well, we also know that by Zoom, a lot is lost. And it is important to have people come together. They gather for, I think it's 10 days, around 2 weeks. They have many different things. Some of the bishops are invited to go into local community churches to preach and to lead worship, to get to know communities and participate in group events. They also have regular Bible study together with other bishops from all over the world. They aren't grouped together with like-minded, environmentally, like the Canadian bishops don't all gather together. They may indeed have a time to do that, but there's an intentional pairing and partnerships of people who come from a different place and whose people are speaking a different language, both literally and metaphorically. Something to keep in mind is the different places that people are. I am no way defending what is happening at Lambeth this year, and I will explain that in a moment. But something we have to keep in mind is that the context in which these bishops are coming, representing their people. The bishops from North America are coming from a place in a society that is struggling with the recognition of the full humanity and the full rights of our LGBTQ2+ people, two-spirited plus people. We are coming from a church that is facing in North America, especially the United States right now, are the Episcopal bishops from the Episcopal Church, ACUSA, the Episcopal Church United States of America. They are coming from a very politically unique place and that they bring with them as they pray together, as they think about the future of the Anglican communion. But then there are also bishops from places like Africa, where the LGBTQ stuff, unfortunately, isn't even on their radar the same way. We have bishops who are coming from places where education for girls and women is not a thing yet, where polygamy is a legal thing, and for some bishops they have multiple wives because that is their cultural context. There are bishops who are coming and saying, regardless of what I personally feel about all of the issues around gender and things like that, my biggest concern is my people are dying with AIDS or with COVID or monkeypox or things that for us seem like, yeah, we have to pay attention to them, but LGBTQ2+ spirited plus issues, they're the big thing. We need to pay attention to that. And we have other bishops coming and saying that's white noise because we're talking about the actual lives and ability of people to live. We also have bishops coming from around the world who think that women shouldn't be in ministry, let alone that there would be women bishops there, because there are many women bishops attending this Lambeth conference, including our primate in Canada, Linda Nichols, who is our archbishop, our highest ranking bishop, so to speak, and she's a woman. So there are many, many different things. And so I ask people, before you get hot under the collar and before we start yelling at each other about what is wrong with the church and why we shouldn't even be putting up with this anymore, is to remember that we do not speak in a vacuum. The bishops and the people, the Anglicans and the Episcopalians that they represent for North America, are but a small percentage of all of the Anglicans around the world, for whom there are many, many pressing issues, not least of which is the dignity of every human being in many forms. My hope is that the issues around LGBTQ2 Spirited Plus will move forward in a positive way, in addition to all of the other things that must happen at Lambeth. One of the things, though, that has come up is in 1998, 24 years ago, there was a resolution at Lambeth Conference regarding the state of marriage and what was appropriate for Anglicans in the Anglican Communion to appreciate about marriage, and that it was upheld at that time, not without contest, not unanimously, obviously, that marriage was intended to be a state of a long-lasting relationship between a man and a woman. And things since then have, there have been moratoriums in some churches where they just aren't talking about it while they're in prayer. And other churches have moved forward. In the Anglican Church of Canada, some dioceses, not all, but some dioceses have moved forward to state not only would we have blessings of civil marriages of two people of the same gender, but some dioceses have now created rights that we have the full marriage right. Other dioceses have not, and we are still in conversation with one another. Was a Facebook post, a letter written by one of the suffragan bishops out of the Diocese of Toronto, and this is something I have posted on my Facebook page. A bishop in the Anglican Church of Canada has written the following: "Please hold Bishop Kevin and all the bishops in your prayers in the days to come." And this is stated that Bishop Kevin Robertson has been given permission for the sharing of his thoughts leading into Lambeth, especially with regard to the Lambeth calls that were released this week. Thoughts and prayers are with you, Kevin. And this is what the bishop has said. "Dear Facebook friends, like many of you, I have been shocked and dismayed by the Lambeth call on human dignity, which in part calls upon the bishops to reaffirm Lambeth Resolution 1.10 from 1998. That 24-year-old resolution, for which there was no consensus even then, limits the definition of marriage to a man and a woman in a lifelong union. I strongly oppose the proposal to reaffirm this resolution at the upcoming Lambeth Conference, and have conveyed this to the Archbishop of Canterbury. I believe it would significantly set back the pursuit of justice and the respect of the dignity of every human person to which we are called in baptism. Moreover, as a gay man married to another man, my understanding and experience of human dignity includes the blessing of two people joined together in holy marriage, regardless of gender. What is more disturbing is that, as a member of the Human Dignity Call crafting group, I never agreed to this call in its current form. At no point in our meetings did we discuss the reaffirmation of Lambeth 1.10 at the conference, and it never appeared in any of the early drafts of our work together. I can confidently say that the Human Dignity Call, in its current form, does not represent the mind of the drafting group, and I distance myself from the reaffirmation of Lambeth 1.10 in the strongest possible ways. I also unequivocally reject the phrase within the call, "It is the mind of the Anglican Communion as a whole that same-gender marriage is not permissible." This statement is simply not true. With others, I am seeking to amend the Human Dignity Call over the coming hours and days, and I am hopeful that this is possible. There are many things in the document that do reflect the good work of the drafting group and would be tremendously positive for the Church and the world, especially the call to protect human dignity, with particular attention to sexuality and gender. So I very much hope that the Human Dignity Call can be amended rather than rejected. Please pray for a positive outcome for this work. To my siblings in the LGBTQ2 Spirited Plus community, remember that you are deeply loved and cherished. Our place in this beloved church is not dependent on any resolution or call. by virtue of the fact that we are fearfully and wonderfully made by our loving Creator and redeemed through Christ. This is our church, and we belong fully. Since that has been published, since the bishop has published that, this has also come out from the Lambeth Conference itself, has published this statement. In full consideration of the comments made about the hashtag Lambeth Calls, the Lambeth Calls subgroup that is coordinating the process will be meeting with the Archbishop of Canterbury, the president of the Lambeth Conference, today to discuss concerns raised. A further statement will be issued later. That was issued 4 hours ago. I know that a lot of people are angry and they are hurt and they feel that their church has yet again betrayed them. But I ask your patience. The church itself is a body filled with people who have their own thinking, their own opinions, their own prayers, their own heartaches, their own joys. And every single person coming to Lambeth Conference has been duly consecrated in the church in the same way from bishop to bishop by the same Holy Spirit. I do not believe, even if they believe completely opposite to what I do not believe that any one single bishop comes to Lambeth with a heart filled with hatred. I believe that they believe fully in their stance. Conversation must take place. Prayer must take place. Patience must hold. If everyone who feels that they have been hurt walks away from the church today because of this, what many feel to be an aberration for what the church must stand for, there will be no church. And for many of you, I know that maybe this is a good thing, but there are many things that the church stands for in practical matters. The Anglican Church in the world builds schools, and it creates wells. It helps communities to be able to send girls to school who would not be allowed to go to school. Not just not able, but wouldn't be allowed to go to school. Women would not be priests if a division like this simply had people walk away from the church rather than stay put and fight within it. I met a long time ago, I was at the Canadian Theological Students Conference in Winnipeg. I was on the planning committee, and there were many theological students from across the country. And two of them were two nuns from, I believe they were from Newman in Toronto. And I asked them, like, why do you stay? Like, you feel called to be, you feel called that you are called to be priests within the church, and yet the Roman Catholic Church in our lifetime will probably never acknowledge that your call is valid. Why do you stay? Why don't you just join the Anglican Church? And both of them responded, because we are Roman Catholic and we believe at the heart of Roman Catholicism there is a heart to serve Christ. And if we were to walk away from what we believe God is calling us to do within our church, then we would fail God. God asks that we work together when things are difficult so that we can change things. If we simply quit the hard work when it gets the hardest, then not only have we failed God, have we failed the call we have to change things, but we have failed ourselves. We cannot change the church if we walk away from the church. We must stay in relationship with the church in order to change it. And so I am begging of you right now, if you are watching this and you are angry, if you are pissed off at the church, if you are frustrated with all those male bishops, and some of them female, who believe wholeheartedly that God thinks that being gay or trans or any of those things is contrary to the will of God, don't walk away. Don't quit. We cannot change people's hearts if we simply disappear. We must stand up. We must carefully, faithfully, and without vitriol speak the truth we understand that God is sharing with us. And that truth is that every single human being who takes a breath on this earth, regardless of gender, regardless of color, regardless of where they are born, or into what regime they are born into, they are a child of God, and they have the right to be treated with respect and dignity. That is what we need to do as faithful believers, as members of the church, as people on the outside looking in. I am begging you, do not get so angry that you quit the church. Allow your anger to become action that faithfully and gently recognizes the dignity of the other, even when you don't agree with them, and teach them by example the truth that God created all of us in God's own image, and all of us should be offered the same rights and the same privileges, and we should have the same expectations as every other single child of God. So please do not walk away from the church, but pray for it. Pray for our bishops, for all of them. Pray for the bishops who speak your truth, and pray for those bishops whose ears seem to be stopped against it. Pray that they might have a change of heart. Pray that they might, like Saul becoming Paul, recognize that God is speaking a new word to them, and that they might have the humility and the ability to change their minds. Pray with me that God's will be done at Lambeth, in the Anglican Communion, in the church around the world, regardless of denomination, in every one of God's children. Amen. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to feel betrayed. It is okay to feel hurt. It is not okay to simply quit. We need your voices. We need you to stand in solidarity with those who have the courage to stay put and to try. With Bishop Kevin and his husband. With all of the bishops who stand in solidarity with him as he walks into Lambeth. Not as the only, but as one of many bishops who, in their ministry and in their life, part of who they are is that they are a gay bishop. It's just a part of who they are. It is not all of who they are. Just as all of us bring all of who we are to the jobs we have. Let us support them as they bring all of who they are to the jobs they have, as they sit together and pray together and study the Bible together and debate together at Lambeth Conference. Please pray for the Anglican Communion in the next couple of weeks. God bless you all.